no. Vamos a empezar a grabar para que tengamos esa reunión para los que no pueden estar aquí. So we have the recording for the people who can't be here tonight. Also, just want to make sure, since it's been a minute, we're all very excited to have you here, but some reminders. También porque ha pasado mucho tiempo desde nuestra última reunión. Y estamos muy alegres de tenerlos todos aquí, pero quiero recordarles de unas cositas. So one of the main one is translation. La cosa primaria es la traducción. So remember that our beloved Marta, si se acuerdan de nuestra querida Marta, that she is working hard to both listen and say back in Spanish everything that's being said in English. Está trabajando duro para escuchar todo que está dicho, que dicen en inglés, para traducirlo a español. So please, when you're speaking, speak slowly. Be kind to Marta. Así que cuando están hablando, por favor, hablen despacio, que sean amables con Marta. And if you see us do this, or if you see someone kind of like waving, así que si ven a alguien haciendo esto, o algo con las manos, that probably means that you're speaking a little quickly and Marta needs a second to catch up. Es probable que esto signifique que está hablando demasiado rápido y Marta necesita un momento para alcanzarnos. So now I'm going to share my screen and we can move into sharing the agenda with all of you tonight. Ahorita yo voy a compartir mi pantalla y voy a compartir la agenda con nosotros ahorita. Marta, are you starting translation right now or after? Okay.
She's translating, so we can't hear her anymore.
Okay. Ya hemos empezado con la traducción. Hola, Angie. Así que hay un mundito ahí abajo en la pantalla. Si se acuerdan, lo pueden elegir, lo pueden tocar y después elegir el español para que escuchen Marta. Así que vamos a hacer una prueba rapidito. Si pueden escuchar Marta. If you can hear Marta.
Marta, you need to unmute yourself, Marta.
Yeah. ¿Me escuchan?
Sí.
Sí, Martita.
Ok, gracias. No me regañen, tan temprano.
All right, I'll go ahead and share my screen. Okay. So first thing is we're gonna be talking about kind of a review of what has gone on, where we are in phase 1 design, and both a review of what we have done and what you all have worked on, but also we'd like to share some updates with you today. It's been a minute since we've had a meeting, so it feels really good to be back here with you all and to be able to share some news and progress, another part. We're also going to be talking about progress we've made with partner builders who will also be building homes in market rate homes and also affordable homes in phase 1. Including Piedmont Housing Alliance, which is here represented tonight by Sunshine, if you remember him. We'll also be taking some time for small group discussion. If you remember the breakout rooms that we can go into and have some time to speak with staff, discuss questions you have, and then come all back together. Have some time to discuss, like share what we've talked about, but also ask questions for the representatives that are here. We also, there's some few other introductions that I didn't mention that will come all from Piedmont Housing Alliance and also from Habitat. So I'm gonna go ahead and pass it off to Joe.
Great, thanks, Jordan. So like Jordan said, it's fantastic to be back together. It's been a while and it's good to see all of your faces. So I want to start by introducing some of the newer faces that are joining us tonight and have a bit of a round of introductions. The first person I want to introduce is Andrew Viniski. He is our Director of Land Development, and he's joining us tonight.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Be in the room and get to know you guys. And then, like Jordan said, we have some folks from Piedmont Housing Alliance. So that would be Andrew Miller, Mandy, and Sunshine. And so they'll be available to walk through some questions and answers at the end. And then I also wanted to take a minute and introduce you guys to someone who's on the Habitat team, but she works at the main office. So Annie Borgeson is here with us tonight. She is on the, hi Annie.
Hello. Buenas noches con todos.
She's on the team of Habitat staff that processes applications and works with folks once they've applied to the Habitat program. And so for folks who are joining us new tonight, I want to take a minute and recognize the community leaders that are here. So there are lots of you in the room tonight. And so these folks have been meeting with us for years, as far back as 2017 or earlier, and have spent more than 3,000 hours working on the design of their future neighborhood. So I want to extend a welcome to all of you guys. And also just note that we are missing Amanda and tonight. They're out, but will be back with us at our next meeting. So with that, I will move from introductions and share some updates with you. And I'll ask Rush if she would share her screen. So we've been talking to folks the last couple weeks, last week, to make sure you are up to speed. And the first thing we want to highlight is that site planning for Village 1. So Rush, if you'll, next slide, I want to, if you'll just move your cursor, Rush, to remind everybody of this drawing. So we'll start with Old Lynchburg Road, and you see that at the very top of the screen, and it intersects with Hickory Street, which we usually call the back entrance, right? And you see Hickory Street goes all the way down. And so that's the, you'll see the top part starting with block 12 and then going to the left, block 11, until it dips down. And you see starting at, I think, Rush, can you, does the circle pop up if you advance the slide? Yeah. So down to Village 1, right? So we've got the new road that comes in off of Hickory and then down and leads into Village 1 area. So hopefully this looks familiar to everybody. And again, what we want to mention is that the site planning for Village 1 has made great progress in the weeks since we've met. And we expect approval to come very soon on the final site plan. And so there haven't been any significant changes to the site plan. One of the things that they've been figuring out is where the location of the manholes are in the street. So it's been kind of a, won't call it simple detail, but it's been that kind of detail where there's been conversation back and forth to figure out exactly where those go in the street design. And so we're excited that that approval is right around the corner for the site plan of Village 1. So I think in terms of what you can expect as we get approval, we will start the process of engaging with different folks who could work to clear the land. So that's not a fast process. We want to put out a bid and talk to folks who are interested in partnering with us. So that'll be happening over the next few months. And so that's what you can expect. And we'll continue to have meetings as necessary over the next few weeks. But tonight we're going to focus on the updates we have from our partner builders. So I'll pass the mic to Rush.
Hello.
Presentation.
Thanks,
Hi.
Joe. All of my children and family just returned home, so if there's background noise, forgive me. There's a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old that are, figuring stuff out. So as Joe mentioned, the main purpose of our conversation tonight is to give you guys a chance to hear about a lot of the updates that have happened since we last met, and ask questions, get clarification, have some discussion in small group. A lot of you, I think, have had the opportunity to have one-on-one conversations to cover a lot of this information with the folks on our community engagement team. So I'm going to give a pretty high-level presentation. It's really just a review of the information you've already received so that we can really get to the part where you guys are in small groups talking amongst each other, and that we're going to break back out into the larger group for question and answer. So I'm going to run through this relatively quickly. You guys probably recognize this. It's tilted to the side. I always have to do this to look at it, but this is the model you all helped us create that described the different housing typologies, the open space that we wanted to see in Village 1. You will also probably recognize this, which is how the engineers and architects were able to take that information and turn it into this technical drawing that, as Joe has already mentioned, is in with the county. Our first submission was about a year ago, and we are almost at approval, which is really exciting. And that's, as Joe already mentioned, going to give us the chance to start seeing some construction happening. And there have been no changes to the layout that you all produced around the affordable housing units that we'll produce. We're getting 49 units in this first village. The only thing that's really shifted here is that we have been able to work with somebody, work with a building partner, and that we are working towards contract with them. So we're not under contract yet, but we're getting really close. And that's going to allow us to provide the market rate component in this first village alongside you guys. You'll also maybe recognize this, this model here. This is some other design work you all did to give us your vision and your desire for what the shape of the blocks 9 through 11 would look like. Here is the most recent layout that is the expectation for blocks 9 through 11. The biggest shift in this since when you all last saw it, things are relatively the same here along Horizon Drive. We always have had this sort of group of townhomes to create this nice pedestrian walking experience with porches and houses on the street. It used to be that back here behind there were small apartment buildings. That has now shifted, and all of it is going to be, we are thinking right now, all of it will be developed as townhomes. A lot of those from a market rate provider, but it is also giving us the opportunity to provide some affordable habitat townhomes in that same series of blocks, which is pretty exciting. And then this is the last bit of that design work that you all were doing. So Old Lynchburg Road is up here, Hickory Street here. This is block 12 and a little bit of the last part of block 11. So if I overlay on top of that most current design, you can see a lot of similarities again. We are working again with PHA. You guys have met them in the past. We've looked at the way that they're designing their building. The last time we looked at it, it was all on block 12. It was these two buildings. What is the exciting new update since we last talked is that now they're going to be able to provide another building on the other side of Hickory Street. So we'll have these nice 2 buildings framing Hickory Street. It's allowing us to do a little bit more affordable rental in this first phase than we initially thought. And it's also going to make sure that our application for tax credits to make this happen is really, really competitive, because it is a competitive process to get those tax credits awarded. And here's a reminder, most of you will recognize this, but this was the last design or rendering of the building that PHA is looking to produce along Hickory Street. And so that's really the end of my presentation. I want to keep it simple. I don't want to talk at you guys for very long. So with that, I think we are ready to look to go into small groups. So I'll stop sharing my screen and let Jordan tell you what's next.
So you all are familiar with this portion, but just for everyone here, what we're going to do is break into some smaller groups with Habitat staff to facilitate discussion. You all residents will have some time, questions you have, clarification you'd like, and we can come back as a bigger group after that to share out and have a larger group discussion. So hopefully everyone has some time to voice their opinions and ideas. Good to hear from you all.
All right.
And yeah.
Thank you, Jordan. Okay, I'm going to send you all into your rooms. Have fun. Angie, ¿está allá?
Long way.
So we
We've had our fair share.
We do notice the 2 people that are always down in the lower right-hand corner, and they're feverishly calling on their phones to people who got kicked out or something.
Well, we all made it back. Todos regresamos. Where'd Jordan go? There, you're somewhere here. Jordan, will you remind folks about translation just in case they need to reselect?
Para los que quieren escuchar en español, no se olviden de elegir el mundito ahí abajo de la pantalla otra vez, porque se desconecta cuando salimos.
Marta, will you do a test?
You're muted, Marta.
Unmute
¿Sí
yourself.
me escuchan todos? Todos me regañan.
Sí, está funcionando.
Ok, perfecto.
All right. Well, welcome back, everyone. I hope you had good small group conversation. We are now going to do some sharing out and do a bit of question and answer of whatever things you all surfaced during your small group meetings, the questions you all came up with. I have a couple of reminders, maybe for myself more than anyone else. Marta is translating. Sometimes it gets a little exciting in these question and answer back and forths. Do remember that if you speak at the same time as someone else, Marta can only translate one of us. So if you really want to be heard, wait and speak in turn so that Marta can translate both people and nobody gets left out. So try to speak nice and slowly. Don't talk over each other so that we can make sure we hear everyone's voice during the question and answer session. So I think with that, I am just turning it over to the small group leaders to share out what you all heard in your sessions and get us started. I'll pick Joe. Joe, go first.
Okay, great. So I'm going to go back to my list of questions to make sure I don't miss anything. And I'm just going to read all of them, and people can think about, I think most of the questions are related to Piedmont Housing Alliance. So the first question is, in the new design, is retail space still in play or not at all? Hi, Ben, good to see you. And then the second question is, how many units of affordable housing are in the PHA design? How does PHA define affordable? And who are those affordable units for? And is PHA also going to build in the Village 1 area? What are the limits for income for the PHA programs? And is PHA going to reapply for the LIHTC program? That's the end of our questions. Oh, there was one, I asked the group a question, would they be interested in meeting the partner builders in the future? And they said that would be nice.
So this is Sunshine Mathon at Piedmont Housing Alliance. I met many of you. I'm not sure if I met everyone in the last time we got together about a year ago. It's a long list of questions. I don't remember them all. So what I think I'm going to try to do is have Andy answer some of the technical questions as it relates to number of units and that sort of thing, and then any questions that Andy can't answer directly that are kind of more big picture, I can address. Does that work for you, Andy?
Yeah, that's totally fine.
And just as a quick introduction, Andy joined our team in January. He came from North Carolina and has been involved in affordable housing work for many, many years, both as an architect and as working in the developer sector, building affordable housing. So he is a wonderful asset to the team. And Andy, why don't you take it away, and then I can answer any questions that are more big picture.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Sunshine.
Just sorry, really quickly for Andy and Sunshine, I'm going to put those questions in the chat so you don't have to remember them all.
And I'm actually looking at the Google Doc that's
Perfect.
actively updated. So let me see if I can run down them. So I think the first question was, is retail space still in play or not at all? And so unfortunately, the answer there is that we do not have any more retail space in the project. And that's more of a function of the difficulty of the financing and the structure of the affordable housing financing. So we do not have any right now.
Let me add one thing to that, which is, it's true that the retail space, the difficulty of financing that has gotten in the way of being able to fulfill on that goal. But we are doing all that we can to still try to build as large a community space as we can to be used by both the residents in the affordable housing units, but also the community in general in Southwood for gatherings, quinceañeras, birthday parties, whatever it is that is helpful for the community. So that is still a goal. We have not finalized exactly how big that will be, but we are endeavoring to try to build that as big as we can.
Thanks, Sunshine. So how many affordable units? So there are 130 units proposed for the community. All 130 would be affordable at some level of income. So, so all of them are affordable. It just depends on what your income is. How that ties into how does PHA define affordable? So we are tied to our definitions of affordable by the financing that we receive. And that financing ties affordability to people's incomes as a percentage of what they call area median income. So it's kind of what the average household income is in a certain geographic location. And so, you know, for this project,
Basándose en el ingreso de la persona. Y vamos a utilizar diferentes ingresos dependiendo de cuántas personas y cuánto ganen.
So who are the affordable units for? Therefore, anybody that's eligible to income qualify for those units.
The one thing that I would add to that is that under fair housing law, we are required to do first come, first serve, generally speaking. So if somebody gets in line and calls the leasing office and gets on the waiting list, then their name stays in the order in which they called, and we serve them in that order. As long as there is an apartment available that matches the income that the applicant has. So we have to follow strict fair housing guidelines in that process. The one area of flexibility that we have around that process is that we can, particularly at the beginning of the lease-up process, we have flexibility about how we advertise. So initially, before we advertised to the community in general, we could ensure that current residents in Southwood had the first notice that the wait list was opening. And once, and then maybe a few days later, then we can open it up to the general public. So that would give, if that's of interest, that would give Southwood residents kind of a first shot at it. And then at that point, from that point moving forward, it would be from first come, first serve.
All right, I'm looking at the list. So I think the next question on there is PHA going to build in the Village 1 area? At this time, we have no plans to build in the Village 1 area.
Can I just add one other,
Sure.
This is Sunshine again. One other thing to add is that there may be some time in the future, maybe in a future phase, where we are re-invited to be a partner in the process, but right now we're focused on blocks 11 and 12.
So someone asked, what are the limits for income for the PHA programs? So we talked about this a little bit before. It ranges somewhere from 20,000 to 70,000 based on kind of the income limits for the specific unit and household size.
The one thing that I would add there is that we are generally planning smaller unit sizes, so 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, recognizing that there is a need, of course, there is a need for all sizes of apartments throughout our entire region. We know that for sure. But we know in particular that smaller families and this is a broad colorization here, but smaller families and in particular seniors have a very deep need for affordable housing as much as possible. The region as a whole is aging, and so we're trying to respond to the need in the long run. So because we are focusing on 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, the income levels to qualify for those apartments will be lower in general than say a 3 or 4 bedroom, because the rents will be lower in general.
And Andy, I think the last question from Joe's group was to clarify if PHA is going to reapply for the LIHTC program. So maybe the application process a little bit.
Okay, so we are going to apply for the LIHTC program for this project. So So that will be, so to give a quick overview for that, so what we'll need to do, it's a funding program for affordable housing, LIHTC, L-I-H-T-C, stands for Low Income Housing Tax Credit. So that process is a rather lengthy process. And so we will apply for that funding in March of next year. Essentially, we have a highly competitive project, so we anticipate being awarded, but again, it is a highly competitive program. The awards come out in July of that same year, so 2021. And then once awarded, we would plan on going under construction the following, say, spring. So spring of 2022.
To go back, sorry,
that's okay.
To go back in history a little bit, many of you remember that we were at this point last year. And to be clear, we were working hard to try to make that March application deadline. But it turned out there were a few things that we didn't anticipate that got in our way. And so because it costs, our process costs a lot of money in terms of having to pay the architects and civil engineers and internal time, we chose to pause, recognizing we wanted to come back the following year, i.e., right now. And we worked in that intervening year, in that interim time, to make sure that we were well prepared and to make sure that we were going to have even a more competitive project. And by that, I mean more likely to win the tax credits. So as Andy mentioned, we will have a very competitive application. It's not a guarantee, but we feel very strongly we have a very strong chance of getting awarded the credits in June next year.
Thank you, guys. Marta's group did not have any particular questions, so certainly if anyone in Marta's group thinks of some questions during this portion, you can jump in and ask, but I'll go ahead and let Jordan give her group's questions. And then if anything has popped into your head after we get done with that discussion that we want to keep talking about, we're here and we can keep answering questions for as long as you guys have them. So go ahead, Jordan.
Sure. So our group very conveniently had Andy, Bruce, and Whitney in it. But the questions that came up in our group were a lot about the affordable housing. So Angie, or sorry, I need to name names. We wanted clarification about what type of affordable housing are we talking about in each block and what kind it is, details around it. Will there be rentals from Habitat, or who are the rentals coming from? What we've already touched on of how many bedrooms will be in the apartments for rent, and then some details about common areas in and around the PHA buildings. So yeah, Andy, I know that you mentioned you had answered some of this, but maybe for the broader group to hear too.
Sure. I mean, so a couple of the questions that came up were the number of units and the mix of units. I think, I can't remember if we've addressed it in the larger group, but we have 130 units. 26 of those are going to be 1 bedrooms and 104 will be 2 bedrooms. Speaking to kind of Sunshine's comment on there being smaller units in there, which come with a lower rental price. And then the other thing that we talked about was also some of the amenities in those buildings. So there will be some common spaces. 2 of the buildings will have community rooms, and one of those is the one that Sunshine was talking about, which we're trying to size for the larger community in general, not just for the rental community. And right now we have that located so that it's directly off of the pocket park that we have on the corner, so that there's a lot of activity around that park. In addition to that, there are some amenities that are available to the renters, to the individual or households that are renting in the community. And so there'll be an additional community space, a small gym, probably a community
pequeño gimnasio, cuarto de computadoras.
On site.
And I felt like I would be okay with jumping in here to answer also the broader question about other types of affordable housing, just to clarify, because I know we talk about the term affordable and it means different things depending on which group you're talking to, and we're talking about rentals and we're talking about home ownership, and it does get confusing which piece we're talking about at any given time. So the area that Andy and Sunshine have been giving us all this good information on is up there by the entrance by Hickory Street and Old Lynchburg Road, and it's those apartment buildings that will be up there. We also talked about how now in blocks 9 through 11, so along Old Lynchburg Road, we are going to have the option to do a few habitat affordable units that are new. We didn't know that that was something we were going to be able to do before. That design is still in process, so what those units are is still getting figured out. It's going to be anywhere from 8 to 16 affordable habitat units mixed in with the market rate units that are going to be there. And we'll be continuing to design those over the next couple of months and figure out exactly what that will be. And that will be affordable home ownership through the Habitat program that you guys have been talking to your financial coaches about. And then of course in Village 1, which is the part that you guys really had a heavy hand in designing and creating with the engineers, those are the 49 affordable habitat units. Almost all of those are going to be Habitat home ownership options, and they range from townhouses to duplexes or attached houses to detached houses and to condo units. And in the condo building, we have 20 condo units. There will be a few in there that are reserved for deeply affordable rentals for some of our existing community members who need deeply affordable rental options in Village 1. So we've got a real range already designed, and we haven't actually even finished designing phase 1. We've got another little section to design. So everything from affordable rentals in apartments, affordable rentals in condos, affordable home ownership, and all sorts of different types of housing. So we've really got it spread across the whole neighborhood so that the affordable and the market rate are all sort of mixed in together, and you really can't tell one from the other. Just to add that, since we've been focused so much on the PHA apartments. I think we've covered now all the questions from Jordan's group. Jordan, do you feel like there was anything left out? Okay, good. So those are the questions you guys generated in your small group. I realize that as we've been talking and hearing more questions may have popped into your head. So please feel free. I'll let you guys jump in. You can put something in the chat if you're more comfortable with that. You can just unmute yourself and ask a question, or if your video is on, you can raise your hand and someone would ask you to ask your question. So I'll put myself on mute and see what happens.
Okay, I have a question. So
Yes,
what
ma'am.
PHA is talking about is Sunshine in them is not building until 2022.
Correct.
So, correct? Am I correct? Okay. So what about, so a senior citizen or someone senior would have to wait 2 more years before they can rent one of those apartments. So where would Habitat, would they move them somewhere else and give them another place to live for 2 years, or what would happen to them?
Rose, just to clarify, so you're imagining that between now and 2022 and really 2023, because Sunshine and their group will go vertical in 22, but they won't be able to live in those apartments until closer to 2023. So you're saying, so say someone who is a senior in Southwood already between now and then has to be relocated because of redevelopment. What is Habitat going to do? Is that the question you're asking?
Yeah, you're gonna, is Habitat gonna relocate them, but not for a Habitat rental, but for a PHA rental?
Yeah, great question. So we are committed to on-site temporary rehousing for everybody who is currently living in Southwood, regardless of whether they're going to buy a Habitat home or rent an affordable house in the future. It doesn't really matter to us what your end housing unit is, since you live in Southwood and you got that that notice from us back in 2019 saying that we were committed to rehousing you, that it's not important to us. We're not only going to rehouse people who are buying Habitat houses. We are going to rehouse folks who are renting or whatever else their housing goal is after redevelopment is, well, as redevelopment completes. Not, you don't have to wait till the end to move into your house. Does that help, Rose?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have one more question.
Do it, Rose. Thank you.
I'm sorry. This is for Sunshine them. For PHA, they said they're going to be building for, they know, like kind of the older establishment, seniors and stuff like that. And I'm wondering if they realize that, you know, some of the seniors will have mobility issues and stuff. Will they also, within that senior housing, be building, having some handicap accessible apartments?
Rose, that's a fantastic question, and absolutely.
Sorry.
It's okay. Somebody else agrees. That's a fantastic question.
Well, that's my daughter Sharika. She's handicapped. She's trying to get. I say you can get your own place.
All right. So yes, absolutely. That the units, many of the units, if not, I can't necessarily guarantee all of them, but the majority of them will be accessible and also built under what's called the Universal Design Standard. And what that means is that, you know, even for someone who doesn't have a mobility accessibility challenge, they may have somebody who comes to visit who does. And we want to make sure that the units work for their visitors as well. And our goal is to ensure that the units all have elevator access as well, so that, you know, on the upper floors, we can ensure that people can get to those units.
Okay. What? Well, I'm not talking just so much about elevators going on. I'm talking about in the unit itself.
Like a handicap.
Like in both cases.
Bathrooms and
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
So there will be accessible bathrooms and also what are called accessible kitchens.
Okay.
Which means that the countertops, some of the units will have countertops that are a little bit lower for those folks who are in wheelchairs or have other mobility challenges. That's one example. That will make sure in those units that the cabinets are lower as well a little bit to make it easier to access those. We will make sure that the hallways are sufficiently wide and the doorways are sufficiently wide so a wheelchair can roll through easily. All those aspects will be taken care of.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, guys, last call for questions. Don't regret not asking your question tonight. No one's going to lose sleep over not asking their one question, right? Wanda says no. She's going to bed. Okay, guys. Well, with that, I will hand it over to Joe to kind of wrap up our meeting. Thanks, everyone, for all of your time and your thoughtful questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for joining us and for having good questions for these partners. I want to make a couple of announcements. One, we don't know exactly when we will have our next meeting, but we do have a list of topics that we know we need to connect with folks about. So please stay tuned. You'll be informed. We know we want to get back to lighting, HOA updates, condo updates. So we are working on the answers for those questions so that we can report back to you and have meetings about those topics in the future. In the meantime, I hope everyone understands that there will be applications for the Habitat program in March. So that sounds really far away, but I feel like time is speeding up during this pandemic. So we are trying to connect with folks right now to make sure that you feel prepared if you decide you want to apply. So you are probably getting phone calls or text messages from folks asking to collect your documents. Please respond to us or just let us know, I've decided I don't want to move forward. That's okay too. But we just want to make sure we connect with you about any questions you have about that application process. So I know in my small group, there were some questions about that, and I want to make sure that everyone knows we're happy to meet with you one-on-one to answer those questions. One of the things that we are ready to share right now, if anyone is interested, is a copy of a sample application for the Habitat program. So if you've been wondering, I think sometime months ago, I mentioned how long it was. Does anyone remember how long the application was? I know Richard does, but he might not unmute to say it. We have copies of that. Did he answer? Is it in the chat?
He unmuted, but you have to pause so he can answer.
Richard, how many pages is it?
I remember right, it's 19.
19 pages, yeah. With the cover letter, it's 20. So it sounds really intimidating, but it is not. But we think it might be nice for you to see what that application is mostly gonna look like. So if that's something you're interested in, please ask your financial coach if you could see a copy of last year's application, because we want you to feel well prepared and there shouldn't be any surprises for you when March rolls around. So I think that is the end of our announcements. It strikes me, it's been a while from seeing everybody, and I just want to say thank you so much. It's been a real joy to be back together again. And if there aren't any additional questions or comments, we can conclude the meeting in what might be the shortest meeting we have ever had in the last 3 years. Thank you, Lulu, for applauding the short meeting. We hope everyone is doing well. And like I said, please feel free to reach out to us if you have some questions, either about the application process or redevelopment that you would rather discuss with us one-on-one. So with that, I think I'll conclude the meeting. Great to see everyone.
Bad for saying it.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye,
Gracias,
everyone.
gracias.
Buenas noches.
Bye, Bruce.
Buenas
Good to see
noches.
you.
Buenas noches.